What's up? Thanks for coming back and watching another video here at Garage North. Starting to make some good progress on the RX-8. As you can see, I've got it covered now just because I can. And we're gonna start looking at the engine on this car. It's been fully rebuilt. I videoed everything, so I have that video actually ready to go. I'm going to take you through each step of the build process. So this video is going to focus on me pulling out the engine, just kind of showing the condition that it was in when it came out of the car, and then we'll go from there in the next video with the actual rebuild video. And this is the motor completely rebuilt, also using an OEM Mazda install kit. When I put everything back together, and here she is, completely rebuilt, all new seals. Again, I'll talk about it in the actual assembly video. I want to show the breakdown first though, and I've got a couple other things. I got an underdrive or a lightweight pulley coming in. New clutch should be here as well, and this is some other stuff that I'm working on. This will be probably in the next video too. In between the engine and the rebuild, I sourced a flip-up stock navigation system, and I'm retrofitting a tablet into it. So that's pretty cool. That video, I've already started that as well, so that'll be coming out soon too. I've got to wire everything, put it all back together. So the interior of the car is going to be probably next. I haven't even showed you guys the interior, but I completely reupholstered the seats, so we'll get that going as well, and the sound system. I've got a Pioneer sound system going in too, so all of that's coming up, but this video here is going to focus on the engine. So let's get into it. Again, this is going to be back probably about almost a year ago when I pulled this thing out. It did not look like this, so you'll see some of the clips. I'll do a voiceover, just kind of walk you through the basics of a rotary, and enjoy it. So as you saw in those previous clips, the motor was definitely tired. It wouldn't even rev past 5,000 RPM. It's a totally stock Renesis. This footage is from 2018, just while I was inventorying the parts. I hadn't done anything to the engine at all, totally stock. Hadn't even cleaned it. It has 88,000 on it. It had just been compression tested at a Mazda dealership, and it failed on every face of both rotors. The values were between 5.8 and 6, and they should be around 8 or 9 for a healthy motor. So I definitely knew it was blown. I knew that it wasn't a seal issue though, because the faces all had consistent values, which was a good starting point for me. I had to get a hoist and work all that out to pull the engine out. That's the shot when I first got the car, literally brought it home and took the hood off. And then here it is with the hoist ready to go. I'd unhooked everything. Labeling is so critical when you're pulling these motors, just so it makes it easy when you put everything back together to know where it's going. I did all this by myself as well, so it proves that you can do it with just one person. Hooked the hoist up, yanked it out, and in the next video you'll kind of see a time lapse of me doing that. Again, everything is labeled. It only took about 8 or 9 hours probably to get all the hoses and wiring figured out, disconnected, labeled, get everything unbolted from the engine. The transmission was probably one of the hardest parts as well, because one of the bolts up near the top is super hard to get to, but if you remove the mid pipe, it actually makes it pretty easy. So I'll just let this time lapse go, and you can see just basically the process of how you get a motor out on your own. So this is the motor fully mounted on the stand. I used a adapter from Aaron Cake, got it off eBay. Definitely recommend getting an engine stand and adapter to put the engine on. It makes it so much easier for disassembly and rebuilding. And this is it, totally broken down, and just the block on its own. You can see how dirty it is at this point. And then there it is with the iron removed. You can see the look, all the carbon kind of built up on the rotor. And the good sign to me was that there was no obvious damage. You can see how caked and carbon the rotors are, though. The car was driven in winter a lot, and I don't think it was revved up very much, so there was a ton of carbon on these rotors. And those are the stock irons. Again, pretty good shape. It only has very low mileage on it, so not much needed to be done with them other than I wanted to have the porting done. And there you can see the CNC porting that RX-7 Specialties did. It's very precise, and those ports are very large. And then those are the resurfaced housings. They look brand new. There's no chrome wear whatsoever on the edges, which was a very good sign for me because it saved me a ton of money. And then the resurfaced flywheel you saw. And then those are just the rotors. Obviously the one closest to the camera is cleaned, and the other one is still covered in carbon. And then these are just the parts all cleaned up and ready for assembly. And the next clips I'm going to cut to the engine basically the day before I took it to get rebuilt. I'll kind of walk you through basics of how a rotary works if you're not familiar, and you can just kind of see the engine as it sits right before getting rebuilt. So here's my motor all ready to go for rebuild. It's obviously all cleaned up now. This is the basic block of a 13V MSP, the stock motor out of the RX-8. Very different from a normal piston engine. So these are the major components of your block. So you've got your end housings, center iron, and then your two rotor housings. So these motors make about 230 horsepower stock from Mazda. And this is your exhaust port and your intakes. So these have actually been CNC ported. They're much larger now, about 30% bigger than what they were. You can see the edging up there. So that port is going to be open a lot more. It's going to intake a lot more air. And the exhaust, the thing with these is this shelf here can get really gunked up with carbon. And that's the cause of a lot of apex seal failures. That piece of carbon will break off and start spinning in the housing, and it'll ruin your seals. So that's been taken care of with the CNC porting. And then we've opened up this, as you can see, a lot larger than stock. And these are the rotor housings. Again, very important piece of engine building for the any rotary really. These can get a lot of chatter markings from your apex seals. And these need to be, most of the time when you do a rebuild, you get new housings. You can get them refinished though as well, resurface. So I've had these resurfaced and they look brand new. There's no damage to any of them at all. They're ready to go. And same with the center housing. Again, the porting on this is very, very aggressive. You can see there it's quite a bit more enlarged now. And again, we did the exhaust porting as well. So this motor is going to make pretty good power for an NA RX-8. And I'll show you the rotors as well. So these are the rotors, piston equivalents, if you will. These are what make the power in rotary engines. They spin inside those housings, and compression and sealing is the most important thing with these engines. So they have a bunch of seals that go in these rotors. These are side seals that fit in the grooves on springs, and they push up and down to seal against the sides of the housings. And then these are your apex seals, which go on the apex of each rotor. So there's 6 of them total. And these are what push up against the insides of these housings here, which cause those chatter marks. If the spring gets stuck, or if particles get in there that shouldn't be in there. And as soon as you lose that seal, you lose compression and your engine makes no power. So these get all new seals put in, and then you get it all put back together. And this is the stock flywheel. I've had it resurfaced, so I'll be using that when it goes back together. The other piece as well, these are stationary gears. So there's one on each side of the motor. So when you're inside, the rotor basically spins around that gear. Oiling is another critical area with these motors. And you can see on this, I don't know if you actually could see it. Very hard to see actually. These bearings need to be replaced. You can see the copper because it wasn't getting enough oiling. Yeah, these bearings only have 88,000 kilometers, which is not a lot, and they need to be replaced. So getting 2 of those as well. And then all new seals, all put back together. I'm lucky enough to live close to a dedicated rotary shop called R7 Specialties. So they did the porting for me and the housing refinishing. So I'm gonna drop that motor off there tomorrow for the rebuild. And also, this is another integral piece. This is the equivalent of a crankshaft. It's called an eccentric shaft for rotaries, or E-shaft. So this goes right down the middle of the motor, and the rotors spin around it basically. Alright, so that's where I'm going to stop this video. So now you've seen it come out, you've seen what it looked like and how the new porting job and everything sonically cleaned and media blasted looks. So in the next video, it will just be like 25 minutes of throwing together this rotary engine. So if you've never seen that done, this is my engine. You'll see it's a professional builder with 25 years of experience doing it. And I'll do a voiceover and walk you through the steps while he's rebuilding it and putting everything back together. So stay tuned for that. That should be up soon. And thanks for watching.